Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of The Fit Investor. I am your host, Cale Delaney, and I'm coming to you again from Florianopolis, Brazil. And I am down here spending some time checking out the area, looking at some real estate, and it's a very beautiful area. We have some excellent weather, thankfully, even though it's wintertime here, but it's been beautiful, warm enough to get out on the beach, thankfully, for a little bit of time, do some hiking. So looking forward to some nice sunny weather for the rest of the trip here. But since I'm down here, we are going to give you guys a special episode of the best of the Fit Investor. So you're going to be able to enjoy some of the main highlights from some of our excellent guests that we've had over the past year. And so I hope you guys listen, enjoy, and get some encouragement and some good advice and tips from our favorite guests over the past year. This is the Fit Investor Podcast, where we talk about how to live a more holistic life of being fit, not only financially, but physically and faithfully. We'll be joined by experts in all these areas to share their experiences and actionable and practical tips so that you can be a fit investor too. So now let's join our hosts, Cale Delaney and Brenna Carls. All right, welcome to another episode of the Fit Investor Podcast, where we talk about how to be fit financially, physically, and faithfully. And today we are actually going to be interviewing yours truly. It took me about 6 months to figure out and discover really the short-term rental industry. But once I did, and I discovered it from another podcast, I had heard the host was talking about short-term rentals and in particular the market that I focus on now, which is the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee. And it all sounded great. And I didn't even know where the Smoky Mountains were. And so literally looked it up on Google Maps. It was about a 16-hour drive away. And we packed up the entire family in a minivan. And a couple days later, drove out to the Smoky Mountains during Thanksgiving week, which is the worst possible time to go. So we drove out there, met with a realtor, looked at a couple properties, and I pretty much sold myself on the market and this method or this asset class, short-term rentals. I'm sure a lot of people probably have heard the saying that the path to success is never a straight line, but more of a zigzag. And that's really the truth in my case. Like I said, I started out studying for an engineering degree, quickly realized even during school that I did not want to do that for a profession. And I had become interested in real estate at that time, frankly, just from a financial standpoint. It was one of those things that you hear people make money in real estate, right? So I thought, why don't I go work in real estate somehow? So I chose to be a commercial real estate broker down in Miami where I was living. And I sold multifamily and retail real estate. And it was a great learning experience. It was not something I enjoyed at all. And the timing was just awful. Like you said, in 2008, that's when I left. So I had started in 2006. And so I was basically on the downside of the good times and rolling headfirst into the Great Recession. So really not a great time to be in that profession. All I heard was how great it used to be and how hard it is now. And then, like I said, it was a great learning experience. I learned a ton. I met some really great people during that time. And I got access to real estate investors at that time, which I really didn't think, I wasn't in a mindset at that point in my life where I was thinking about investing or thinking about building generational wealth or anything like that. So I really didn't take advantage of the opportunities that I probably could have at that time. But overall, it was still a good experience. And after I jumped ship from that, I got into construction management simply because it was the next logical thing for me to do with my degree. Like I said, I didn't want to do the design engineering. And so construction management was something that was still in a similar field and could utilize my degree to some extent. And it was a common career path for people with an engineering degree. So that was really the motivation. I jumped into it. Good career, but it was something that I never truly had a passion for. However, I stuck with it for 15 years. Wow. And that's what I did the next 15 years. I worked as a construction manager and worked my way up from the bottom to becoming a senior project manager, which was my position for the past several years before I left. And like I said, again, a real great career on paper for sure. Starting in 2019, when my youngest son was born, that's when my mindset started to shift from just following the social norm of working that W-2 job and saving in your retirement accounts to one day retire, to thinking that there has to be another way. Once he was born, I just started thinking about the future, and I couldn't see myself working in that same job or that same position for the next 30, 40 years. I'd look around and look at my peers in that industry who were at that level, who had been working for that long. And that's just not who I wanted to be. And so I just really had a soul searching moment of, well, what do I do? What can I do to change this and break free? And I just went back to real estate at that point because it was the only thing that I could think of at the moment. Really, I knew that had the ability to really build generational wealth or wealth in general. And so I had that on the forefront of my mind. And then I just started doing research. One of the first things I did was read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which I know many people know. I think it's still one of the best-selling books in the world. Was it 30 years later almost? And for a reason. It's really about the mindset. And reading that book really flicked the light switch in my head on changing that mindset from the social norm of the W-2 world and being an employee to understanding that if I want to break free from the rat race, I need to be an investor and I need to have a business. And so that just really changed my mindset. And I decided that, okay, that's what I need to do. Real estate's the way I'm going to do it. And then again, just more research, jumping into podcasts, books, you name it. And that's really how it all started.
What would you tell your 20-year-old self if you could go back in time based on everything you've learned and where you are today? What would you say to the Kale that I met at the gym?
It really would just be about getting started in all these things at that time. If I had started in real estate at that time, if I had started on my faith journey at that time, just how much further I'd be ahead where I am now at the age I am now. The sooner you get started on something, the better. But it's a challenge for anybody when you're young. You just really don't have most people. Some people do. Some people, there's some young entrepreneurs, real estate guys that I know that are just crushing it in their early 20s, which is, it's insane. They're going to be crazy by the time they're my age. But most people I don't think are prepared mentally at that age, that stage in their life to really understand or really want to understand, frankly, and think about the future to that degree. So yeah, if I could go back, that's what I would tell myself and encourage myself to get started now. And today we have a very special guest, Laura Wegner.
My biggest actionable tip right now is we all know that time is money and that I'm a big advocate of systems equals freedom. So to that end, I'm currently working on 3 ways to do that, which is make sure I have 5-star guest communication, which means it's automated. I'm also making sure that I get my tech stack in place, which is dynamic pricing, property management system, guest verification, all of that. And then the last thing is develop a set of standard operating procedures. So I started as a lower elementary school teacher on the big island of Hawaii. I would go and teach in the morning, then I would get my surfboard and go out and play in the waves with my students afterwards.
Sounds wonderful.
Very marginal surfing technique. I dominated the keiki section, I always say. The keiki is kids, so where all the kids surf. I dominated the keiki section. Anyway, and then from there, my life really unraveled. I don't in particular want to go through every detail of it, but it really unraveled. And I found myself in a place saying, what in the world am I going to do next? And so one of the things that I was really praying about and thinking about was a career change. That's how I shifted from being a teacher to going into the field of linguistics, because I knew that there were language groups out there who didn't have an alphabet or written form of their language, or they had certain texts they wanted translated, but they didn't have a written form. And I thought, I could do that. It's just like education. When you get an education, nobody can rip that away from you. So I had been through a time where I was just stripped of everything. And I thought, oh, I can go and do that. And nobody can ever take that away from me. And that's what I love about teaching. That's what I love about education. And that's what I love about linguistics. It was a way to still give back to communities and do something pretty fantastic and exciting and new.
Yeah.
Linguistics is intense though. It's crazy hard and I didn't know if I could do it, but I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go for it, and I excelled and just loved it. And I worked in Papua New Guinea on and off for about 6 years, climbing mountains with a backpack, being dropped off in a helicopter.
Really?
It was the land of the unexpected. Just letting go and saying that's done and pivoting and moving on. I think that's really knowing when to do that and when to move on to the next thing is probably the most important thing that you learn in life. Starting from you playing with someone on the playground and they don't play nice. Maybe it's time to play with someone else who plays nice with you. You're dating someone who it doesn't work out. Well, it's time to move on from that. You purchased a property that you maybe made a mistake on. Maybe you cut your losses and you take that money and put it elsewhere. I don't know, but I do know that it's so important.
And we have a very special guest, Mrs. Brenna Carls.
When I sang 3 songs at church for solo, afterwards, everybody came up to me and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you were so good." And so I got in the car with mom and I was psyched her. And I was like, "Oh yeah, everybody thought I was good. It's awesome." And she was silent and she was like, "Yeah, you were good. But were you receiving the message that you were giving?" And even to this day, I think of that daily, whether it be mortgage, whether it be anything that I'm doing. Am I doing this for the right reasons, right? Am I receiving that message that I'm trying to give out to everybody else? And it was a big wake up call. And so I always have to bring myself back down to earth and say, why am I doing this? Am I doing this to help others or am I doing this to brag? And so I try to start everything that I do with that question. Oh my gosh. I do say, and I don't know if this is good for everybody. I didn't know what the heck I was talking about when I first started, but I faked it until I made it. So that's what my advice is. Fake it until you make it. As soon as you learn something new, just take that and just learn every single thing you can about it. So as I can use proposed rental income, when I learned that on an investment property, I looked up all of the guidelines. I have a photographic memory. And so I looked up all of the guidelines on rental income that there is to know about rental income and I memorized it. And then the next lesson, whatever that was, you can use rental income from the property they already own. Memorize all the guidelines about that. Memorize all the guidelines about cabins. There's some lenders that don't like cabins. So, beach houses, flood insurance, every single thing that you can think of, I did. And I would post on social media. And I know I got on people's nerves with that because that can be annoying sometimes. But that's how I started to get into the business and get that business from local realtors. And then a realtor would hear about my name from another realtor. And so my goal was, which is still my goal, is, I don't have to be somebody's first choice. I just need that person to recognize my name when somebody offers it as a choice.
Right.
And so that's my goal. And that's what superseded everything else and skyrocketed the career I had. I love talking about all this stuff and pizza. So if you guys want to talk about any of it, just let me know.
And our special guests today are Celia Cortez and Ariel Siegelman. And so this is a special episode where bringing them in. They are the founders of the Global Action Institute, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit more detail. And more importantly, we're going to talk about what they are doing in Israel and share some light on the realities and the truths of what is going on in Israel currently. And so we wanted to have this special episode. They just returned from a trip in Israel, actually distributing some supplies through the Global Action Institute. So we wanted to bring them on, get some firsthand experience and knowledge, and again, shed some light on what's going on. So welcome, Celia and Ariel, to the Fit Investor.
Thank you so much. We're so glad to be here with you and lovely to see your faces after, a month or two of not seeing you guys.
In society, there's a lot of different kinds of conversations going on right now. And one of the big themes is there is no truth and it's all like my truth and the way I feel is true. And so first of all, I'd like to clarify that is completely illogical, because if there's no such thing as truth, then Is that true?
Right.
And so if that's true, then it negates the argument altogether. We know that there's such thing as truth. Now, truth is something that exists outside of myself.
Right.
What's inside of myself is my own feelings, and that the definition of enlightenment actually is being able to make sure that what's inside of myself coincides with what's true, what's out there, and that I actually am in line, like my perception of reality is reality. That would be my definition of enlightenment. So when I look at the situation with Israel right now, and it's really not right now, it just happens to be a big topic, but it's been going on for a long time.
Right.
I think that one of the greatest difficulties is that we're really in a battle between those two philosophies. Is it a philosophy of it's about how I feel, or is it a philosophy of what's true? And I think that unless we're able to actually look at what's true and we're willing to really identify what the facts are, facts of history, facts on the ground, if we can't look at the facts, then peace is absolutely impossible. You can't base peace on like me yelling and screaming at you. Obviously, I'm a biased party, but I think everybody's a biased party. But what does bias mean? Bias means that I have an emotional thing that says that I want something to be true. I think that's what a bias is. But I would like to believe that more than anything, I want to know what's true. I would like to believe that my friends are right, but I definitely am committed to the truth. And if my friends are wrong and if I'm wrong, I know that I'm the kind of person that if I'm wrong and I can identify that, then I try to change it. So that to me is the beginning of like where we're coming from. Now, I spent a lot of time in Israel. I served in the military there. Part of the reason I chose to serve in the military there is because I saw the facts on the ground, and I'm convinced that nobody's perfect, nobody's without any faults. However, overall, Israel has a righteous stance in this conflict. And the Israeli government, again, while it's not without fault, it's a truthful government. Like when they tell you this rocket was shot from this place and landed on that spot, you can take that to the bank. Mm-hmm. And even when we make a mistake, even when we're at fault, and I say we, right? I was part of the system. Even when we're at fault, we hang our heads and we say, yeah, we did that. That was our rocket. Our rocket hit that place. Now, what you can also look at is that Hamas, you can't trust anything they say. They'll even tell you the truth. They're very truthful in how they lie. They're like, yeah, everything we tell you is for propaganda purposes. Everything we're doing is for furthering our cause. We don't even want to take care of the Palestinian people. Killing innocent people on both sides furthers our cause.
Mm-hmm. And they'll tell you.
And they'll say that flat out. I feel like it's really an amazing thing to me because we're at a time period where I don't know that it's almost a gift, right? I don't know that I've ever seen good and evil in human beings be so clearly defined.
Right.
Like usually when we're dealing with a bad person, a criminal or something like that, we have a situation where it's like, gosh, I don't know. The guy really is, he does this good thing and that good thing. And maybe he really is a good guy who's just directed his energy in the wrong place. This is different. You cannot, I don't know how people can argue that like cutting the heads off of babies is a good thing, is a justified thing. Right. Now, I will tell you, hurting a child, I don't care who they are, if a Palestinian child is hurt, that pains me and I don't want that to happen.
Right.
And a lot of what we see right now, and we'll get into our trip to Israel, but a lot of what we see right now is almost an entire generation of people who are getting their news from TikTok. They're getting their news in these short little snippets from these talking heads that know nothing about the world. They've never been to the Middle East. They've never been to Israel. They've never studied the Israeli history with that region. Mm-hmm. But yet, all of a sudden, everyone's an expert on the Middle East. Right. We are battling that right now. And having conversations like this is going to help just a little bit. And we have to have these open conversations.
So
how do people get involved with the Global Action Institute? I know we can donate, but let's say people If they can't donate monetarily, I know you said it's pretty much volunteer basis. Are there opportunities for people to get involved with you guys? How does that work?
Sure. So we have monetarily is most important right now, right? We just came back from a trip from Israel where we took 2,000 pounds of gear and supplies worth $300,000, not just for soldiers, but for women and children who had their homes burned to the ground. So we used volunteers to help gather the duffel bags that we took everything over with. We used volunteers to pack the boxes and label things. So
there was somebody volunteered to drive a truck up to New York to where we had to pick up the plane. And
they spent 16 hours on the road for us.
Yeah, and also connections. When people, maybe you don't have $1 to be able to give, but maybe you've got a company that can help with transport. Maybe people who have good connections we can get deals on good equipment. Maybe we're getting licenses through the Department of Commerce and the State Department to be able to transport different kinds of items. Those sorts of things, when there's a lawyer who's assisting us and donating her time. So those are all very meaningful contributions, and where people have, I think as a religious person, one of the ways I look at the world is I don't know why I had all the experiences I had, but there are certain things that happen with urgency like this that all of a sudden I start seeing, oh, that's why I met that person 2 years ago. Now I know why.
So they can visit our website. It's gaicares.org. They can learn more about us. Our social media is where we're most active. It's Global Action Institute on social media. There we post our photos and our videos of what we've done, of what we need, what we're looking for. And again, our mission is not just Israel right now. We've helped organizations all around the world. Kale, we're grateful to you for your $50,000 matched contribution. We're looking forward to working with you to help your orphanage in Tanzania that's close to your heart. So we're involved in a lot of things around the world, and we're happy to have as many volunteers and all the support that we can have.
And today we have a very special guest, Mr. Brandon.
Real estate investing in general, learn by doing. Take action, have a plan. You're going to learn more by doing. You can only read so much and take in so much information. The rest of it's going to be by experience. Don't be scared to get in, get dirty, find something that kind of meets your mold, but get in. Even in today's market, high rates, high prices, real estate's a great avenue. I think we need to just do something. Something is better than nothing. For faith, continue to learn the faith, become more spiritually mature. Understand that it is a journey, but it's staying on that path, staying on that journey, realizing it's a journey and continuing to grow. In our journey with Christ, just grow with him and understand it's a journey. It's not an overnight thing. I sat there and I was like, trying to motivate myself to go. And I just didn't want to. I'm like, I'm not here for the right reasons. I don't want to be here. So it was like, it was just a weird kind of thing where I could not motivate myself to do it. On any given day here, I can get 4 hours of sleep and I can wake up and use the restroom. I'm like, I'm going to stay up for the day and I'm going to go for a run, give myself a little adrenaline boost and enjoy my morning, the peace and quiet. Yeah, for some reason there, it just was not happening. So super grueling days once that first kicked off. And I later learned from a buddy of mine that lasted another week longer in the training that it was nothing. It was literally like a psych event just to get in our heads. And I had failed drown proofing previous to that, which you get opportunities to do. Again, you're not technically supposed to be practicing drown proofing in general, but yeah, just a normal thing. I'm going to get up today, I'm going to go drown myself. So it was overall a great experience, set the tone for the rest of my career and some lifelong lessons taken from that. I think finding your limit in anything, right? Knowing where you are, what you want to do, what you don't want to do, what you can do, what you can't do. It's pretty important. And you don't waste calories doing things that you don't really want to do or you can't do, or you're better off doing things in lieu of that. It's essentially life opportunity cost. If I decide to do this over that, that's a decision, right or wrong. You have your own justifications for it. Yeah, overall, a great experience. And as I've grown older, I did follow on work with them, oddly enough, afterwards. When I was in the intel community, I helped send them out on missions. I was essentially finding bad guys, targets, developing their patterns of life and things like that, developing target packages for for them in Army Rangers so they could go out and operate on. What I've learned was it just my personality and some of the struggles I dealt with as a kid and the type of environment I was raised in, parents alcoholics. I'm not, but it would just it's a struggle. A lot of high up tempo. There is a lot of alcohol in that community. High divorce rates. It's a grind. It's a grind. And for me, it's kind of like a blessing in disguise that it didn't happen because ultimately God did not want me to be in that community. Supporting it was great because I got my fill. I got to observe things, do really great things, I think, for the country and the host nations that we were in, but also help them out and get my fill for working alongside some of the most elite military members out there. Yeah, it was good. It was a good experience. And you listen to other podcasts, you read books and stuff like that. It's like failure is not a bad thing. I failed out of that training, but there's so many positive things that I took out of it. I think it's good. When you're in these communities, you get into real estate investing or even spiritually, like you start going to church, you're exposed to other things that you're not aware of. And you're watching people, like in the case of the church, you're learning what spiritual maturity is and how there's help there if you need it. There's this, that, or the other. Same thing with real estate investing. You get in the right communities. And I'm watching people like you and others that have the part of the W-2 life and they seem to really enjoy it. So it helps me aspire to do stuff like that and set goals to get to that point. The very first time I went to church, God was just speaking to me like it was just plain as day. And I just knew this is where everything was. I was in the moment. I was where I was supposed to be. And it wasn't because I wanted to be there. It's because God wanted me to be there. And that's when I rededicated and actually started living a Christian life, actually developing a relationship with Jesus. There were some other details in there that was like the perfect storm for all this. Met a woman there who was Christian as well. She just graduated school and I thought she was going to be the woman I was going to marry. And it didn't happen that way. The girl I had met previously on my ship in Washington, who was now my wife, never thought I would see again ever. It all just converged together to where I was in a place that I didn't deserve to be. And I never thought I would be. And it's all because God had laid those steps out for me. Even being with my wife, where my heart was not prepared to be with her. I didn't know I'd be with her, but God had not prepared my heart for her. She would never have married the old me.
Absolutely. Excellent. Brandon, before we sign off, where can people find you? Where can they reach out to you if they want to?
Oh boy. I'm on Facebook. I think it's Brandon.Bodwin14 or something like that. I'm on LinkedIn. You can just search my last name. There's not a lot of Bodwins out there. Social media in general, I don't spend a lot of time on there. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm in some of the Facebook groups. If you just type in my name, there's not a lot of Bodwins out there on general with all 5 vowels. Thanks, guys. Appreciate the time. Take care.
All right. And today we have a special guest, Mr. Austin Palacios.
Figure out everything that you've ever wanted in this life and write down how much money each one of those costs on a monthly basis. And that's your get it out of the rat race number. I think once you actually get it on paper and it's just not a thought, it's so much easier to achieve. Second one, you need to implement 75 hard. So you have that consistency and that discipline to actually hit those numbers because you become laser focused, pretty much tunnel vision on how to actually get there when you go into that program. And that's how I was able to build this co-hosting business so quickly. So the third one is figure out what your why is. You actually have to really want this. Has to be the most important thing to you in this entire life. And if that's the case, then there's no doubt in my mind that you'll achieve what you're looking for. In my slow time, I would listen to this podcast called Bigger Pockets, right? And I would just listen to it and just take in as much knowledge as possible. And then I move up to Chicago, start my role. I'm in the role for probably 2 or 3 months. And then I just start saying to myself, I'm not really enjoying what I'm doing. There has to be a way to get out of this and find an escape, right? So I start brainstorming all these different ideas, like creating, I don't know, like a new business, creating anything that I could possibly put my mind to. And then one day I'm just walking from the train, which is the loop, to work. And I just had this aha moment, right? So I'm looking around at all these different people my age, people that are 40, 50, 60, all doing the same thing as me, going to the job and then just going home and then just repeating that process until Friday comes around. And I just said, hey, look, like I can't ever have this happen to me. I got to figure out a way to get out of this. So instead of me recreating something, I'm just going to follow a blueprint, and real estate was that blueprint. And then I just started engulfing more of bigger pockets. So I went to every single meetup around town, Monday through Friday. I didn't have a car in Chicago, so I would take a train an hour each way, go to these meetups and just learn and just network with all these investors that had so much more knowledge than me. And then I would ask these people to grab coffee. So over the next 4 months or so, I just learned as much as I possibly could, read the Bird Book by David Green, great book. If anybody hasn't read it yet. And then I was able to get all this knowledge and understand how my numbers actually worked. And it led me to find my first deal in Chicago. When you're following a routine and you're disciplined, you have so much more time on your hands and you're doing one thing every single day consistently. It compounds and it builds and it makes you and builds you into somebody that you've never seen before when you look in the mirror. And so when I started 75 Hard, it was definitely challenging in the beginning. And the years prior, I lacked discipline. And I think the biggest thing from 75 Hard where my lack of discipline came is alcohol, right? So I would drink on the weekends, but when I cut out alcohol, my mind was way clearer. And then the things that I had planned to do the following week always seemed to happen. With myself going to the gym, it built me up mentally as well. So your confidence grows, right? So as you're in the gym, you're working out, you're getting stronger, you're getting bigger, you're looking better, your confidence grows, and you start telling yourself you can pretty much achieve whatever you put your mind to. So I think a lot of people don't really put enough emphasis on confidence and discipline. Like they think they're confident, they think they're disciplined, but you really break that down to like, all right, I say I'm going to do this. Did I actually do it? Or did it get pushed off a month later? God gives you so much by the end of the day. You need to be given back too. So I'm a strong believer is what you give, you get back tenfold, right? Everybody in entrepreneurship, they always say that. One thing that I've been doing, and everybody can find their own way to give back, but I joined Big Brothers Big Sisters like a month ago. So I'm going through that whole process right now, but it's finding a way that you can actually give back, right? Because at the end of the day, God gives you so much, but what value are you bringing to this world too?
If they want to find you, if they want to reach out to you, what's the best way to find you and follow you?
Yeah, you guys can reach out to me on Instagram. It's my first and last name _ So Austin Palacios, AUSTINPALACIOS _ Then you can reach out to me on Instagram and I'll reply to you.
All right. And then as far as your co-hosting business, what's the best way for them to reach out to you on that?
Yeah, it's just the Lux co-host, THE Lux LUXE, then co-host COHOHOST.com. The Lux co-host. David's book host these days.
Awesome. Great. So if anybody's looking for that, they can reach out to Austin and he can help you out. And ladies and gentlemen, join us for the next episode. If you like what you hear, subscribe and rate us. Talk to you guys next week.
All right.